Alright mates, how's it going? In today's video, episode 7 of Blood and Honour by Chris Metzen. Let's go! Tirion arrived back at the outskirts of Stratholme in good time, tethered his horse in the woods, and was now running the last quarter of a mile to the city. And whilst he was running, he was hoping to formulate some kind of plan to save old Eitrigg. However, he wasn't having much luck. No brilliant plan was springing to mind. The problem was, he didn't particularly want to end up killing or injuring his own people. But he was a convicted traitor, so they'd have absolutely no issue killing or injuring him. The fact was, the chances of him saving the orc and escaping Stratholme alive were pretty slim, really. But that wasn't going to stop him. What did he have to lose? Tirion finally reached the city and entered its streets. There were a few merchants and vendors beginning to set up their wares for the day, but it was still early, so the streets were pretty empty. However, as he neared the public square, he began to hear loud voices, shouting and jeering. And as he entered said square, he saw a large gathering at the centre, all here to see the spectacle of an orc's hanging. But luckily for Tirion, the prisoner had not yet been brought out. Good. It wasn't too late. The gathering then started to stir even louder as a newcomer stepped up to the gallows, and Tirion grimaced as he saw it was Buttress. Another figure then stepped up onto the stage, Lord Dathrahand. It wasn't long now, Tirion thought. They'll likely bring the orc out very soon. And sure enough, after a tense few minutes, some nearby gates began to open, and a squad of footmen strode out, dragging a huddled shape. Tyrion's heart then sank in his chest. He didn't stand a chance here. He had no plan. He was massively outnumbered. He had no weapon. Eitrigg was very much about to die. Through sheer panic, Tirion started to move forward, entering the crowd and pushing his way through. They were so excited, nobody even noticed the very recently exiled lord passing. But as Tirion made his way to the front, he noticed Lord Dathrahand give a swift salute and then exit the stage. Apparently that guy had no interest in watching the upcoming execution. Buttress, however, was smiling broadly and eager to get things going. He nodded to the hangman, who proceeded to place the noose around the orc's throat, whilst Buttress waved his hand in the air once more and motioned for silence. "My fellow defenders of Lordaeron, I'm glad to see so many of you turned out this morning. This loathsome creature that stands before you is an affront to the light and an enemy of our people. Its cursed race brought war and suffering to our shores, murdered many of our loved ones with little or no remorse. Thus, we will extinguish this wretched creature's life just as remorselessly. Blood for blood, debt for debt." The crowd cheered wildly, screaming for the orc's blood, and their overwhelming, smothering hatred caused Tirion to feel quite sick. Since when had his own people been so vile and savage? The hangman then moved Eitrigg into position, over a trapdoor, and for the first time, the orc's stoic mask kind of slipped a little bit. He started shaking and fighting against his restraints, and the crowd just laughed. And if that wasn't enough to tip Tirion over the edge, the fact that the hangman was now reaching his hand in slow motion towards the trapdoor's lever certainly was. Tirion surged forward, exiting the front of the crowd, grabbed a conveniently placed sledgehammer that was just lying around on the ground for some reason and made his presence known. The former paladin struck fast and hard, taking out a whole bunch of guards. He headbutted the shit out of Buttress before he could even react, and bloody suplexed the hangman for good measure. Even over the raging, shocked crowd, Tirion could hear the rushing footsteps of more guards on the way, so he quickly raced over to Eitrigg and started to untie the noose.
"Human? Yes, Eitrigg. It's me. You're crazy."
However, "You've damned yourself this day, traitor." Tirion turned to see not only Buttress had picked himself up off the ground, but Lord Dathrahand had reappeared and was now looming as well, his face a mask of grief and revulsion. "Seize them." Some knights stepped forward, as commanded, but Tirion stretched out his hand. He'd spent his entire life leading men into battle. 'Twas time to use his big strong boy voice.
"Hear me. This orc has done you no harm. He is old and infirm. His death would accomplish nothing."
The knights stopped and all looked at each other, a little bit perplexed by what that had to do with anything.
"It's an orc. We're at war with its kind. What's your point?" "We may very well be, but this one's warlike days are over. There's no honour in hanging such a defenceless creature."
"Boo!"
"You're not fit to speak of honour, Tirion. You're a traitorous mongrel."
Those words hit Tirion like a slap in the face.
"I took a vow, long ago, to protect the weak and defenceless, and I intend to do just that. You see, boy, That's what it truly means to be a paladin. Knowing the difference between right and wrong. Being able to separate justice from vengeance. You've never been able to make those distinctions, have you, Bartholus?
At that, Bartholus nearly choked with rage. How dare Tirion say such a thing? The sound of a single beating drum then started to boom out above the din of the crowd, causing Eitrigg to suddenly perk up a little bit. The orc was now seemingly scanning his surroundings, as if looking for some familiar sight, which Tirion thought was a bit weird, but Bartholus didn't really seem to have noticed.
Have you forgotten, Tirion? You're no longer a paladin. You're a disgrace. An exile. It doesn't matter what you think or believe. Damn it, Bartholus, open your eyes. After all these years I ruled over Hearthglen, the one thing I'm absolutely certain of is that war begets only war. If we can't master our own hatreds, this conflict will never cease. There will never be a future for our people.
Bartholus then laughed contemptuously in Tyrion's face, whilst the drum beat grew louder, now joined by other drums. It was loud enough now that everyone was hearing it, and they were all getting a bit startled. But Bartholus just carried on as if it was perfectly normal.
The future of our people is no longer your concern. I rule Hearthglen now, Tirion, and as long as I do, I swear there will never be peace with the orcs. On my parents' departed souls, I swear that every last orc in Lordaeron will burn for what they've done.
It was in that moment that Tirion finally realised there was no reasoning with this guy. He'd given over completely to his rage and grief. But all of that aside, what the bloody hell was the drumming all about?
Kill the orc! Kill them
As blood splattered right across Tyrion's face, he stared, stunned, as Bartholus slumped to the ground, with an orcish spear sticking out of him. And then, all hell broke loose within the crowd.
You brought this down upon us. I always knew you'd betray.
Tirion didn't give a shit what Bartholus was muttering. He immediately snapped to attention, grabbing Eitrigg and hauling him away from the gallows. He had no idea how the orcs had made their way through the city's outer defences, but he was certainly going to use this chaos to his advantage. And it was indeed chaos. All around him was a killing ground, with mighty orc warriors hacking their enemies to pieces. A short while later, after a supreme amount of effort, Tirion had managed to haul Eitrigg all the way out of the city and into some nearby woods. He could still hear screams and clashing weapons in the distance, and part of him felt extremely sad about it, but the other part felt kind of relieved. Thanks to the orc's sudden attack, he'd managed to save Eitrigg. However, he then realised Eitrigg was being very silent on the ground, so he knelt down to check for a pulse, and gasped in panic when he couldn't feel one. So, he placed his hands on Eitrigg's chest, and started to pray to the light. But a feeling of dread then started to fill the former paladin, because nothing was happening. Shit, he'd been excommunicated from the light, he remembered.
No, you will not die, Eitrigg. Do you hear me? I won't have it.
Tirion then started to concentrate really hard, so hard he risked having an aneurysm.
By the grace of the light, may your brethren be healed. In its grace he will be made anew.
Tirion was convinced that the light could not truly be taken from him. Sure, they could strip him of his armour, his titles, his home, family and wealth, but the light would always be within him. And sure enough, the searing warmth started to fill his heart, with a glow emanating from his hands, and he almost cried when said glow engulfed the orc's ravaged body. Eitrigg's visible wounds started to heal, and he gasped for air as his eyes burst open.
Human? What's happened? How did we get here? We're outside the city, Eitrigg. We're safe for the time being.
The orc coughed and eased himself to a sitting position, but the strain of the past few days proved a little bit too much for his old body, so he fell back down and passed out. And then, a rustling sound. Tirion looked around frantically and braced himself for danger, whilst a whole bunch of muscly green blokes emerged from the trees.
This isn't what it looks like.
A larger orc started to walk towards him. Tirion gulped, but the large orc simply knelt down beside Eitrigg, placed a hand on the old orc's forehead, concentrated, and somehow brought him back to consciousness.
You are Eitrigg of the Blackrock clan, are you not?
Bloody hell, do all orcs speak properly? Tirion thought.
It's taken me a long time to track you down, old one.
Your face is familiar to me, warrior. You're far too young to be. Who are you?
I am known as Thrall, old one. I'm war chief of the ward.
Tirion blinked. This was obviously the upstart that Dathrahan had spoken of.
I've heard of you.
And what exactly have you heard, human?
That you plan to rebuild the Horde and renew your war against my people.
You are partially correct. I am rebuilding the Horde. My people will not remain in chains for long. But I have no interest in making war for war's sake. Those dark days are over.
Over? I just watched as you and your warriors hacked your way through Stratholme.
You presume much, human. We only attacked the city to reclaim one of our own. Times have changed. Your kingdoms mean nothing to me. I only seek to finish my father's work, and find a new homeland for my people.
Your father's work?
Eitrigg's eyes then widened in excitement.
I knew I recognized you. You're the son of Jordan.
Thrall nodded, and Eitrigg looked as if he was beside himself with joy.
I'll follow you, son of Jordan. I will help heal our people in any way that I can. Eitrigg told me of your father, and of his fate. He must have been a great hero to elicit such devotion from his son.
My people have always held that it is his son's duty to finish his father's work.
Tirion nodded, wondering if Talon would ever share that sentiment. Probably not. What boy would ever be proud of having a disgraced exile as a father? Thrall then motioned to Eitrigg and yelled a few short guttural commands in the Orcish tongue. Tirion found himself getting a little bit nervous again. What was going to happen now? Were they going to let Tirion go? Or were they going to kill him? But Thrall simply smirked, almost knowingly.
You risked your life to save our brother, human. We have no quarrel with you. You're free to go, so long as you don't follow us.
And Tirion sighed in relief. Thank the light for that. However, before the chapter ends, a strong hand then grabbed Tirion by the arm, and he looked down to see it was Eitrigg's.
We are both bound by blood and honor, brother. I will not forget you.